I have trouble delegating. I'm not a perfectionist, but when it comes to my work, I never feel like I have the process completely nailed down. I enjoy thinking in systems. I get a genuine thrill from adjusting something as I go, noticing what changed and correcting the work before a small mistake becomes a bigger one. That's not a problem when I remain in charge of the whole process. The wheels start to wobble a bit when I need that process to scale beyond just me. Bringing on an assistant forces me to explain the decisions I normally carry around in my head. What should they notice? What can they decide? When do they stop and come back to me to ask questions? So I begin with something small. I watch how they handle it. We talk about what worked and I redirect what didn't. And as they perform well, I expand. I give them more. Simple on the surface, much harder in practice. We are facing that same handoff with AI inside IT operations, except our new colleagues may make thousands of decisions before anyone can even review the first one. With another person, I can redirect the work halfway through. At machine speed, the decision and the action may both be over before I know either even happened. If we cannot watch every decision, supervision has to move somewhere else, into the conditions, before the action and the evidence that come back afterwards. The problem is not whether we should let go. It's where our judgment goes when we do. AI and automation are often treated as interchangeable. They are not. There's a decision to take an action. Right? Simple way to think of it. Traditional automation performs the action. A person or predefined rule has already decided when it should run. If this condition occurs, execute this workflow, apply this configuration, restart this service, install this approved patch. The workflow may be sophisticated, but it has no opinion about whether right now is the right moment to use it. Agentic systems can combine judgment and action. Reliable operations still require us to keep them distinct. Let AI interpret the uncertain condition and decide whether action is warranted. Let trusted automation execute the path people have already defined, bounded, and given a way back. The agent is not replacing the machinery. It is reaching for the switch. Give an agent a goal, give it tools, let it figure everything out. That may make a compelling demo. It's not a credible way to run a production environment. Agentic judgment, deterministic execution. Organizations have spent years doing the unglamorous work required for reliable automation, cleaning up inventory, establishing sources of truth, testing runbooks, and wrapping policy around change. Many of you are still doing it. AI does not make that work disappear. It changes what the work is for. Accurate inventory, intended state, current dependencies, tested procedures, and a known way back no longer support only the action. They become part of the boundary around the decision. Imagine an agent identifies a vulnerable network device and has access to an approved patching workflow. The action is deterministic. Validate the approved image, install it, run the post-change checks, and roll back if they fail. But should the agent push the button now? The asset database says the device is in scope. Current telemetry says it carries a critical workload. The change system says the maintenance window is open. So everything looks green. But then the dependency map reports that it's not been updated in 6 months. The patch is approved, but the rollback was last tested against an older configuration. Every system contributes a fact. The agent has to determine whether those facts satisfy the conditions for permission. The agent has plenty of data. It may not have enough evidence. Data describes the environment. Evidence supports this decision for this asset under these conditions right now. Someone still has to define what counts as current, which contradictions block the action, and when uncertainty sends the decision back to a human. Human control does not have to mean clicking approve on every routine decision. It can mean designing the conditions under which approval has already been granted. But permission gets the agent only as far as the switch. It does not tell us whether flipping that switch was the right call. Suppose the evidence clears the boundary and the agent starts the patching workflow. The familiar audit trail records what follows: the API call, the configuration change, the start time, the completion status. The workflow finishes, the box turns green. That's useful. It's not sufficient. The old automation log was designed to prove that a predefined workflow executed. The decision lived somewhere else, in a change ticket, an approval, or the head of the operator who made the call. Once the agent makes that call, the execution log preserves the receipt and loses the verdict. Evidence has to surround the action. Before the action, evidence establishes what the agent observed and why it had permission. During the action, the execution record shows what the automation did. Afterward, outcome proof tells us whether the decision worked. That proof does more than close the ticket. It becomes evidence for the next decision. If we mistake completion for success, we may expand an agent's authority without proving that its actions produced the intended outcome. We end up promoting the agent for finishing the workflow, not for solving the problem. We are not collecting this evidence merely to explain an action later. We need it to decide whether the system should retain the authority to act again. We tend to picture trust moving in one direction. Agent recommends, then it acts somewhere small, it performs well, so we expand its authority. Return to that patching example. The patch installs successfully, but the service health check degrades. The execution record is green, the outcome is not. That result should not merely open another ticket, it should narrow the agent's authority until someone understands the discrepancy. A system that can only earn authority is not becoming trustworthy, it is accumulating privilege. Trust needs a reverse gear. And that's what turns decision to action from a one-way handoff into a living loop. Evidence earns the action. What comes back determines what the system is allowed to do next. When I delegate, I am not just handing off work, I'm handing off judgment. That does not remove me from the process, it changes my job. My judgment moves into the conditions before the work begins, the boundaries around what can be decided, and the conversation afterward, what changed and whether they're ready for more. AI makes that structure harder to see because the decision and the action can happen almost at once. The speed does not eliminate the structure, it makes the structure matter more. Trustworthy autonomy depends on what must be true before the machine acts, what we prove afterward, and whether we take authority back when the evidence no longer supports it. Letting go was never the same as looking away.